Today we'll be starting with URDPFI guidelines. So this is one of the most important guidelines and kind of a Bible, you can say, for urban planners. इसमें you'll be covering all the topics that in general we have in planning section, even in B 2.2, which is planning techniques and management, as well as in B 2.1, which is regional and settlement planning. So we can't divide the guidelines in three sections because that would not be the good way to go ahead with it. So we'll be taking the entire guidelines in the class itself. So if you see, this is the full form, which is Urban and Regional Development Plans, Formulation and Implementation. So the full form, abbreviation full form, has also been asked sometimes in GATE. It was formulated in 2015. Before this, it was UDPFI guidelines, so that R was not present. So in 2015 version, R was added. So it is URDPFI. And if you see, it has total of around 9 important sections, and then there are some general recommendations and all also, which is 10th one. But in totality, 1 to 9 are the important sections. So the most important section would be eighth section, which is infrastructure planning, because it has all the standards for transportation planning. It has standards for open spaces per capita. It has standards for water supply, sewage, waste management. So that is the most important topic, but other topics are also equally important. So we'll be covering them in class one by one. Again, what I share with you in class is something that you need to be very thorough with. So make sure you go through it properly, and then after finishing the PPTs, you can also browse through the guidelines once again. Because if you see essay, it is very big. It is a huge book. It is about 500 pages. So we can't remember everything. So I'll be sharing what all is important to go through. Have you heard of URDPFI guidelines in like college, or have you just gone through it once before?
No, we went through UDCPR, not this.
Okay, okay, ठीक है. So,
Hello.
हाँ, hello,
हाँ
audible, right?
हाँ हाँ, yeah yeah.
Yeah, okay, ठीक है. So we'll start with this. So URDPFI guidelines, as I'd mentioned, formulated in 2015, is a very important guideline, and it comes across various sections. So in section 5, which is planning process, it will be there. In section B 2.1, which is regional and settlement planning, it will be there. In section B 2.2, which is planning techniques and management, it will be there. So some of the terms you must have come across in previous lectures also, we have discussed those, and some of the terms that we'll be doing today will again come in the next few lectures. For example, we'll be doing surveys and GIS and remote sensing like a couple of weeks later. So you will again see some concepts that will be here. The general way of going through this PPT first would be to carefully listen and grasp these terms or terminologies that are present in the PDF, and then you can eventually do self study for these guidelines. Similar to URDPFI, we'll be covering NBC also later when we do some architectural sections, especially building services and development controls. So this is the first chapter, which is your introduction. So in introduction, they will give you in URDPFI a brief idea of what exactly urban and regional planning is, and what is the classification, what are the different types of plans that are prepared. So for example, in last class, we had already seen this particular definition, right? What is the classification of urban settlements? So we had covered two major types of towns, urban towns, right? First was statutory towns and second was census towns. So this particular clause 1.3 is very, very important because repetitively a lot of questions have been asked in GATE with respect to this particular clause. So we'll just quickly go through it once again. How do you classify urban settlements? It can be a statutory town. That means all places, the first definition, all places with a municipality, corporation, cantonment board, or notified town area committee will come under statutory towns. Or if this is not the case, then or second one is all other places which satisfy the following criteria: a minimum population of 5,000 people, at least 75% of male main working population engaged in non-agricultural pursuits, a density of population of at least 400 per square kilometer. So these two are very important. If you see, this particular table one is from Census of India, and it tries classifying towns based on its population. So again, very important. So if you see the class 1 towns, other towns or other cities that have population more than 1 lakh. So these class 1 to class 6 will be between 5,000 to 1 lakh. So census has classified towns from 5K to 1 lakh. So this is very important. 5K is the minimum threshold that we have already seen in this particular definition. So if you see class 6 towns are towns that have less than 5K, then class 5 is 5K to 10K, then class 4 is 10K to 20K. Similarly, class 1 is above 1 lakh. Above 1 lakh also, further we see some other metropolitan cities that have more one your 10 lakhs to say 1 crore. Then you have megapolis which have more than 1 crore population, right? So this is how we divide all the towns. This is at with respect to census of India's definition. So just remember that with census of India you have town class 1 to class 6 which are important. Then you will see that the second categories of town is known as census town. Population trends in respect to statutory and census towns were indicated in the previous table. Apart from this, URDPFI itself has given its own classification, if you see, adopted for URDPFI guidelines. Again, we had covered this in last class. So it starts with a small town, which starts with a population of 5,000, if you see, and it goes up to more than 1 crores. So small town has two different parts, small town 1 and small town 2, up to population of 50,000. The governing local authority is your Nagar Panchayat. So this is where your census definition comes into picture. Even if your town doesn't have a municipal council, even if it is Nagar Panchayat and satisfying the three criteria, it will be an urban town. Then you have medium town 1 and medium town 2 that have population from 50,000, and you can just multiply it by 10. So 50,000 into 10, which is your 5 lakh, right? You see, even 5,000, if you know the beginning number, you can multiply it by 10, you'll get 50,000 as the threshold. So this is how your guidelines have been developed. Large city is nothing but from 5 lakhs to your 1 million. That will be your large city, and anything above 10 lakhs will be your metropolitan city. So in megapolis, we have currently about, as per census of India, you have about three megapolis, which is more than 1 crore, but it has now increased to up to five. We haven't had census yet, so that's why the data is a bit outdated. So, right, metropolitan city will be 1 million to say 5 million, and 5 million to 1 crore. And then any city having population more than 1 crore will be under megapolis. So now if you see, you notice from municipal council, you go to municipal corporation, and from municipal corporation, you go to metropolitan planning committee. So for example, you have your Nagar Panchayat. This is your first point of contact with respect to your urban planning committees, right? This is the first, the smallest body. Then you have municipal council. This will go into municipal corporation. Okay, ठीक है. So what I started with is Nagar Panchayat, then it goes to municipal council, then it goes to municipal corporation, and then Metropolitan Planning Committee, which is known as MPC, and often we also have something known as DPC, which is your District Planning Committee. So Metropolitan Planning Committee will obviously include your urban agglomeration, right? So what is an example of municipal corporation? Example of municipal corporation is BMC with respect to Mumbai's context, right? What would be the MPC then? It would be MMRDA. So understood the difference. Your MMIDA will not only look into your one town, which is your one statutory town, which is Mumbai, but it will look into all its metropolitan areas. So it can be Thane city, it can be Vasai Virar, it can be Kalyan, it can be even up to now Karjat, Khopoli. MMIDA will control. So this is how your urban local bodies. These are known as ULBs, also known as urban local bodies. Okay, so this is very, very important. And this will come to it again. As per 74th Constitution Amendment Act, This particular 74th CAA will give certain responsibilities and roles to this urban local bodies. We'll discuss this as we go ahead. Itna clear hai? This is very important to understand.
Yeah, yeah, clear.
Okay. Now, this particular table, which is table 1.3, is the most important table in this entire book because it will show you what is the different hierarchy of plans and how you do planning. Okay, so you have two main types of plan. First is core area of planning, and second is specific and investment planning. So your core area planning, as we had discussed in last class also, will start from a perspective plan, which is at a very large level. Then it goes to regional plan, a development plan, and a local area plan. Core area, as the name suggests, are extremely core or crucial for your urban development. ठीक है. So it starts with perspective plan. You can remember perspective plan to be a large perspective or a large vision that your urban local body or your state has with respect to its region or city. Okay, so that will be the first main plan. The time frame that we give for a perspective plan is generally 20 to 30 years. Okay, so it can go up to 30 years. So what would a perspective plan have? It will have long-term perspective vision statement. So it is basically a very huge goals that you determine. One of the things that we have also covered is India's nationally determined contributions, right? When we were doing environmental planning. So those are more like a vision or more like goals that we have to achieve. So this is very similar with respect to perspective plan. Then you have a concept plan. So concept plan is nothing but conceptually what is the framework. It will put in a framework that will be used by the subsequent plans like regional plan and development plan. So perspective plan will have a concept plan or a framework as well as your mission statement. So you can think of perspective plan to be at a very larger level, and things would not be as detailed, and as per local context or various other cities this would differ. That is why it is a one large statement. Now, once you go to regional plan, so for example, perspective plan is your larger vision. If I had to just take it to Maharashtra's context, for say MMR region, interaction of Mumbai with Nashik region, and these with Pune. So this would be the scale that we are talking about. This is that large. So it can talk about interconnection of highways between Mumbai and Nashik. It can talk about a speed, say a high speed rail network between Mumbai and Pune. This is very conceptually and very visionary. Then you need to focus on each of its regions, right? So we have Mumbai metropolitan region. Since similarly you have Pimpri Chinchwad also, which is again a very large region along with Pune. So this is what you need to focus on. That will become your regional plan. Now, regional plan is nothing but to identify the region. So we have identified it. Regional resources for development within the settlement, both urban and rural, plan to be prepared and regulated by DPC, right? So DPC is nothing but your district planning committee. So DPC will now regulate your regional plan. So if you see, even Mumbai metropolitan region is made up of multiple districts, right? It is made up of Mumbai city, Mumbai suburb. It is made up of Palghar, Thane, and Raigad. So there are 5 districts that are falling in in Mumbai metropolitan region. That's why district planning committee becomes very important. Regional plan is given for a framework of 20 years. So keep this in mind. It is not 20 to 30, but strictly 20 years. It will have a regional plan, which will also have mobility and sub-regional plan. Again, we need to divide our regions because it may fall into multiple districts. So this is your second type of plan. Once you come from a larger region to just the town or the city, you will get a development plan, right? Development plan will be to prepare a comprehensive development plan for urban areas, peri-urban areas under control of development authority or metropolitan planning committee. This is where MMRDA and even BMC comes into picture, where BMC is mostly responsible for creating the development plan of Mumbai, right? So you have Mumbai suburb, you have Mumbai city, and you have ward-wise plans, development plans that are given. Now, if you see it again, the time frame is 20 to 30 years. So as of now, our DCPR is with respect to 2034, right? And this development plan was formulated in 2018. So you can just see it is lying between about say 20 years of time framework. Because Mumbai is such a rapidly developing city, you need to have development plans at a shorter interval because there will be exponential change in infrastructure. And one very important thing with development plan is you need to do reviews. So within every 5 years, you need to do reviews whether you are meeting the goals that were set by the development report. So वो goals meet हो रहे हैं कि नहीं वो monitor करना is very important. On the other hand, regional plan and perspective plan don't have reviews as such because they were long term visions or conceptual level plans. So there can be a lot of modifications within the development plans itself. What would a development plan also have? It will have a district development plan, again, mobility, city metropolitan development plan, master plan, city utility, that means your city services, as well as revisions in development plan. So even in with respect to Mumbai metropolitan region and Mumbai's development plan, it was first announced in 2018, and in within like 4 or 5 months there were reviews, and again it was revised because you need to take stakeholder consultation, you need to take people's consultation, and then again you need to revise. So all this will come under the scope of development plan. Now, development plan is at a city level, right? But city will have some neighborhoods, city will have some smaller areas, suburbs. So what about those plans? So that you will find in local area plan. So as the name suggests, it is very localized, it will take a smaller area into consideration. What is the main scope of this plan? To detail the sub city land use plan, so land use, and integration with urban infrastructure, mobility and services. Very, very important. Again, the time frame is 5 to 20 years, depending upon how fast your city is growing, and review needs to be conducted every 5 years. So it will have TP schemes. So you must have heard of Mahim's TP scheme. You must have heard a lot of these TP schemes are marked on development plan. So this is exactly what local area plan has. So town planning schemes, zonal plan, sub-city plan, very important. This is we can relate to ward committee plans more because Mumbai is divided into a lot of wards. So ward committee plan, coastal zone management plan. This is very important. In coastal zone management plan, you take something known as coastal regulation zone, which is nothing but your CRZ considerations. So you take a lot of buffers that are there. So that also needs to be marked. And then urban redevelopment plan. Redevelopment plans become very important because they show you which of the structures are dilapidated. Where can you do brownfield development? Brownfield development मतलब एक साइट पे जहां ऑलरेडी बिल्डिंग बन गया था, so that site is not new, it is not natural, already construction had happened, so where can you redevelop? So this is very important. So are we clear with perspective plan, then regional plan, development plan and local area plan? Any doubts in these four?
No, no, no doubt.
Okay, Saloni, anything?
No, no, no.
Okay, ठीक है. Now comes a set of another set of plan. Now this is if you see perspective plan, regional plan, development plan and local area plan सब city के पास होगा या सब region के पास होगा. Whether it is Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, everyone will have this. The second set of planning is nothing but specific and investment planning is with respect to the city's more features or city's heritage or city's important economic status. So, for example, the first plan you have is special purpose plan. As the name suggests, it has something to do with specialty to identify the needs of special areas within the city which requires special plan within the framework of the development plan. So what are these various plans? Again, it is with respect to 5 to 20 years. So it is very similar to your local area plan. City Development Plan as per JNNURM, which is your Jawaharlal Nehru's National Urban Redevelopment and Renewal Mission. So that is again, we'll study that later. Then you have Comprehensive Mobility Plan, very important. CMP, as I said last year also, your land use and transportation can't be different, right? Land use and transportation interact together. That's why you need to have comprehensive mobility plan also to identify where is your what are the transportation networks. First of all, is it roadways? Is it railway? Is it airway or boatways? So that is very important. Again, there are certain land uses which require much larger volume of transportation. For example, if you have a large wholesale market like APMC, then you need a freight corridor or a freight truck complex also, where larger heavy vehicles are flowing through your city. So that is why a comprehensive mobility plan becomes very important. City sanitation plan, again very important. It will also take care of your stormwater drainage. Then disaster management plan as per National Disaster Management Agency. So this is very important. Slum development plan as per Rajiv Gandhi Awas Yojana. So that is very important. Slum redevelopment is very important with respect to Mumbai's context, because or with respect to any urban area, because there are a lot of slums that are existing. Tourism master plan is something very specific to, for example, you have a heritage city, say Jaipur's walled city area. So in that particular walled city area, you will need to have a tourism master plan, because there are some urban interventions happening in a heritage city or a heritage zone. That's why this becomes important. Environmental conservation plan and heritage conservation plan, so all these are special type of plans. Every city might not have these plans. That's why they come under special and investment plan. The sixth type of plan is annual plan, to translate development plan in context of annual physical and fiscal resource requirement, to monitor plan implementation with performance milestones. Annual plan is nothing but your annual review, basically. So it is conducted in 1 year. This is again optional. A lot of small tier cities don't conduct this, but for larger cities, we require annual plan, because development plan का जो requirement है, उसका funding requirement, that we also call as fiscal resource mobilization. How is the government or how is the urban local body going to get the funds for this development plan? So that is very important, right? So that all is discussed in annual plan. It has your investment plan. So what are the cash flows happening in the city itself? What is the foreign direct investment happening in your city? How much gain are you getting? What is your gross domestic product per PPP per capita? So that is very important. It will also determine your human development index. Then you have audit and monitoring plan. Without monitoring and metering, all these plans are useless, because it is not going to happen like in a day, right? It will take a long period of time. That's why audit and regular monitoring is very important. This will come under annual plan. And then you have something known as project or research. So project or research doesn't fall under any kind of plans as such, so it is not a blueprint as such, but it is all the allied things that you require to support your development plan. So if you see, to focus on project related investments, costing, returns for studies required, so it will have pre-feasibility and feasibility study. So you can think of this as a site analysis guideline that we do, right? So you need to think whether your land use that you're proposing or transportation networks you're proposing is feasible or not. Then what is the detailed project report and timeline? Schemes and sub projects within this, surveys and studies. So as I had mentioned last class also, like Patrick Geddes, we had discussed his work, right? So surveying becomes very important. Then special projects such as riverfront development projects. So all these things will come under your project or research. So these are two main areas. This will in our GATE syllabus. This comes under B 2.1, which is regional and settlement planning. But let's not do it section wise. We'll together cover all the guidelines. So any doubt still here? This is very important. Okay, so you need to study all the parts of this particular table.
No, no, no doubt.
Okay, ठीक. So now I've just taken screenshots that elaborate all the different things, and we'll just see what are the main things. So in perspective plan, if you see, it is more or less a vision plan. It has a long-term goals, and you have your mission statement. This is it for importance of perspective plan. Regional plan will obviously carve out regions. ठीक है? So these regions are classified as three different types. So first is administrative regions, investment regions, and special regions. So let's have a look at all these things. What are administrative regions? These regions, which can be district regions or metropolitan regions as per recommendations of 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. So 73rd focuses on rural bodies, and 74th will focus on urban local bodies. And these are nothing but regions that have your active district planning committee or metropolitan planning committee. So Mumbai metropolitan region can be considered as an administrative region. Delhi NCR region is a administrative region. So all these regions that have a metropolitan planning committee, right? Like for example, we have MMRDA, then Ahmedabad has AUDA. So similarly, every city will have that. Second is investment regions. Investment regions, which can be new investment manufacturing zones, industrial and freight corridors, special investment regions, etc. They could be identified under national acts or policies. So, for example, you have all these corridors, like for example, you have Delhi Mumbai special corridors that have been developed, which is solely based on attracting a lot of economic gains, a lot of investments into regions. Such specialized regions which are based on investments are known as investment region. So you have these concept of, for example, you have Delhi here, then Mumbai, then Kolkata, and Chennai. So there are these industrial corridors that have been developed across all these four larger cities. These the regions, if we see all these larger regions, will come under investment zones or investment regions. ठीक है? Even in your local term, within your administrative region, for example, you have an administrative region here. This is your, for example, Mumbai metropolitan region. Within that, you might have some investment regions which were termed as SEZs, which is your special economic zones. So that might also happen. Within an administrative region, you have some smaller investment zones that are present. ठीक है? Special regions are the third type of regions which are sensitive in terms of environment, socio-economic, or political aspects. For example, border areas. Some of the border areas are vulnerable with respect to political aspects. Some of the regions, for example, if you see Nilgiri zone, or Western Ghats may also, if you see a lot of these zones, are environmentally fragile. Sundarbans, for example, development near that particular those particular wetlands, or socio-economic. So, for example, you have Khajuraho temple complex. Socio-economic and cultural, if you see, for example, we also have Andaman Nicobar. A lot of these regions have the aboriginal tribes that are still surviving there, right? So we need to respect that. So all these regions will come under special regions. So now it is under the main local body, urban or rural local body, to administer all these regions and prepare regional plan. Okay, so these three are very very important. Next, we move to development plan and what is master plan or what is development plan. So let's just read through that quickly. Development plan is a statutory plan prepared under relevant act within the framework of an approved perspective plan. So very important. Your development plan will always follow the framework that has been approved in your perspective plan. The objective of a development plan is to provide further necessary details and intended actions in the form of strategies, physical proposal. So it is no longer talking about concept, but some concrete proposal for various policies that have been given. Proposals of a development plan should be definite, supported by an implementation strategy and an evaluation criteria. It makes known to public the intention of local authority regarding physical, social, economic development that have been happening. Again, as I had mentioned, the time frame is 20 to 30 years, and development plan is the type of plan which will require review. So now what is master plan? The question is, sometimes we also refer master plan to be referred as development plan. So we see some other terminologies. The term development plan is used differently in states. Some states use it for an integrated multi-sector plan, such as the district development plan. In other states, the statutory land use plan approved and adopted by local authority and proposals are precise and definite, notifying the property owners the manner in which their properties will be affected. For example, you have Delhi master plan, Chennai master plan, Guwahati master plan, but Ahmedabad development plan, Hyderabad metropolitan development plan, and Bhopal development plan. Here, both the plans, development plans and master plans, have the same functions and impose similar controls with variation with respect to nomenclature by the state. So, this is something very important that they have clarified, because all the different states are using different names, but you have something which is also known as something different, which is known as structure plan. So let's have a look at that. In areas under the schedule 6 of constitution, schedule 6 of constitution is a particular schedule that gives a lot of power to the original communities or original tribes that were there in the particular area. So land is not directly state subject, such as in north eastern states, right? So generally in our state, the government controls the land. but there are certain fragile states that have more like fragile socio-cultural systems. In that particular case, government can't take the land and use it for its benefit, right? So in that particular case, Schedule 6 of the Constitution is applied, and here the example is given of your northeastern states, where the land title is based on community ownership. The approach to land aspects of development plan may be different in such cases. Therefore, a structure plan approach to land management may be given to this. So, structure plan is a specialized or another type of uh, special case of development plan itself, where you have certain more restrictions or certain more opportunities, and some way you might have to deviate from development plans framework. That means it can span for a shorter time also, 10 to 15 years. It can span for a longer time. The review time might be different. It might not necessarily conform with the development plan. Okay. So apart from
So,
this,
so
yeah,
isn't sorry.
yeah.
So structure. Don't we have structure plan for Mumbai? Like we have Koliwadas now.
Hmm. But okay, so
So
structure plan would be more at the level of development plan. For Kolivadas, it would be more towards your ward level plan. So it will come under
okay,
local area plan, because Kolivadas is a very small part of the entire development plan. We are in northeastern regions. We are talking about entire town or entire larger urban area being under community control.
okay, got it.
So this is the difference between them. But good question. Yeah. After development plan, we have local area plan. Local area plan will promote something known as decentralization of powers. This is something very important. Local area plan was something that was introduced in the view of 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. So earlier, if you see, there was all in planning a very top-down approach. ठीक है? मतलब क्या? You have your central government. They will give some guidelines to your state government. State government will give you guidelines to the urban local bodies. But the issue is, when you see at a very central or larger level, things might be very sorted or very simple. But the moment you get into the depths of your city, depths of your town, everything changes. Right, especially in India, right? Like after every 20 kilometers, you'll have a different language, different culture, different communities. So 74th Constitutional Amendment Act gave more power to your urban local bodies and tried to flip it such that it is a bottom up approach. That means your urban local bodies will give suggestions what is to be implemented in that particular city to your state government, and that state government will convey it to your central government. That is why, with respect to 74th CAA, local area plans become very, very important. So local area plans focus on smaller areas, right? So small एरिया के फोकस के होने के वजह से वो ज्यादा इश्यूज भी पॉइंट आउट कर सकता है कि ये पर्टिकुलर रीजन में ये इशू है, सो वी हैव टू डू दीज स्टेप्स. This particular ward has this vulnerable community in that, so therefore we need some other uh, development that needs to be happened in that particular ward. That's why local area plans become very important. Now, after that, these were your core plans, core area plans. Now we have special and investment plans. So your first was special purpose plan. So as I had mentioned, it has some special objectives or special goals. So it is similar. Annual plan is nothing but your more like monitoring and auditing kind of plan, and reviewing plans that will happen yearly. And then project research. So if you see, this is the relationship of planning system. This chart is very, very important. You have a perspective plan, which is your larger goal. Then if your hierarchy of settlements is not that much, perspective plan can directly go to development plan also. For example, in smaller states like Goa, you need not necessarily have a region. You might go from a larger state to directly cities. In larger states like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, you need regions, right? So from perspective plan, it can go to regional plan, or it can directly go to development plan. Regional plan will always go to development plan. Development plan becomes very important. Again, development plan will have smaller neighborhood area plans or local area plans. They might or might not have special purpose plan, and this is monitored using your annual plans. A local area plan is monitored using annual plans. Regional plan is monitored using annual plans. Your perspective plans are monitored using annual plans. So this becomes very important. And something which is helping the process is your project area or research, but it is not necessarily a plan or a blueprint form, but it is helping in development of all these plans. So is this particular types of plans clear?
Yeah, yeah, clear.
Okay. ठीक है. Now we'll go to some other terminologies that we have already covered briefly. So this gives us introduction to various other types of development that is also happening. For example, we have transit-oriented development. So this we had briefly covered last class also, in which you have your main transit line, then you have your core development zone within that particular transit line, right? So you have all your commercial complexes, you have all your hospitalities, healthcare facilities within transit line, and then you also have residential areas in proximity to this. This is how your transit oriented development happens. And in TOD, the one of the major thing is network and connectivity, very important. And second is last mile connectivity. So last mile connectivity is a new concept in which, for example, you have a metro station here, ठीक है, and you have your house here. तो आप एक मेट्रो स्टेशन से दूसरे मेट्रो स्टेशन तो इजीली पहुंच जाओगे क्योंकि आपके पास मेट्रो है, राइट? सो आपका कॉस्ट भी कम हो जाएगा बिकॉज इट इज अ पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. योर टाइम विल ऑल्सो बी सेव बिकॉज इट हैज रेगुलर रूट्स. But the issue comes metro station ke baad I have to reach my house also. How am I supposed to reach that final 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer span? Is it going to be walking? So that means, is my city walkable enough? Does it have good footpath? Does it have good lighting such that at night times also I can walk through the city? Second option can be cycling. But again, does my city have the cycling infrastructure? Third can be non-motorized transport. For example, you have e-vehicles, electric bikes and all. So, but does my city provide me with that infrastructure? Fourth option is your share rickshaw or some other concepts. Or fifth option is you have to take a vehicle. So even if you solve this problem of going from one metro region to another metro region, you are not solving this ultimate problem where your user needs to reach home. That is why last mile connectivity becomes very, very important in urban planning and transportation planning as well. So apart from this, as I mentioned, pedestrian access, high density mixed income development, streetscape design, promote place making to create a sense of place. Again, your place needs to be safe, right? Whatever you create needs to be, there needs to be a lot of people coming. There needs to be some sense of surveillance also, or else it will become a ghost town. Then you have public facilities and functions activities. So these are briefly covered under your transit oriented development. Then you have some other incentives or special zones that are given. For example, financing of an urban transport projects by unlocking land values such as higher FSI. This is more incentive oriented. Some transit corridors like BRTS, so bus rapid transit system, ring road systems are developed. So here in Mumbai, we come across metro and monorail. In Ahmedabad, if you see, you will see a BRTS system. In Hyderabad, you will see a ring road. There are inner ring road, outer ring road systems. So these will attract a lot of economic activities and in turn will give you more development. And again, then land use based financing sources along with transportation corridor. So transportation and your land use will again go hand in hand. So this is in summary of TOD. We'll again do this in detail also in next sections that we'll be doing. Any doubt till here?
No, no, no doubt.
Okay, so this was your first section, which was your introduction section to URDPFI guidelines. In this, we covered what is an urban settlement, right? What can be called as an urban settlement. We came across four major terms. First was statutory towns, census towns, urban agglomeration, and outgrowths, right? Then we studied how did URDPFI start classifying towns. So it was small towns which started with 5,000. Then you multiplied by 10, you get 50,000. 50,000 पे your medium towns will start. Multiplied by 10, you'll get 5 lakhs. 5 lakhs पे your large towns will start. Large city will be large city, sorry. So you'll have large city which will be 5 lakhs to your 10 lakhs, and then you have metropolitan and megapolis. Apart from this, the most important thing, as I had mentioned, would be your planning framework. which will be your core area planning. So your perspective plan, regional plan, development plan, and local area plan, and your special and investment plans, which will be your special purpose plan, annual plan, and project research. Apart from this, we also had a brief coverage of transit oriented development. The second section will show you how is this process of planning going to happen. What are the exact steps that we need to take while doing the planning process, right? So if you see, this particular chart is very important. Development of aims and objectives. This will happen at your ULB level itself now with respect to 74th CAA. So originally, your what do we say? The main central government or the state government used to prepare aims and objectives, but now every urban local body has to prepare their own aims and objectives and submit it to your state government, and then the entire planning process happens. That is how you ensure that every region has been accounted for its context. मतलब जो वो region में चल रहा है वो हिसाब से ही planning हो रहा है. There is no generalization between different regions. Then you identify what is your site needs, you identify what are your project requirements, and then you start doing inclusive planning and statutory obligations to form plan formulation. After your plan has been formulated, it has to go under a series of approvals. At this particular stage, you have public suggestions also, right? When you have plan formulation, then it will go to implementation. Once it has been implemented, it will there will be regular monitoring. So you will have annual plans that will do your 1 year monitoring, and then project reviews that will be at 5 year of timing, right? After this, you will have evaluation and review and decision to prepare a revised plan. So when we take a decision to give a revision, again you come back to what were your original aims and objectives. So this is how the entire process should be, a very cyclic in nature, not a linear process. And decentralization of plan approval process. Following the spirit of 74th CAA and also recognizing the fact that the current process of approval of urban development plans is time consuming, resulting into delays, it is recommended that plan approval process must be decentralized as follows. So regional perspective plan and regional plans will be by state government and your regional development authority because they are the larger areas. All your local body plans, that is your development plan, then your zonal plans, annual plans, local area plans, will be under the municipal corporation or your development authority, which is your metropolitan planning committee. So this is a very important change. Then all the various plans are approved by either your corporation or your development authority itself. So it doesn't go up to your state government level. Okay? So this is one very important thing. Then what is the participatory planning approach? In last class we had covered all these terms like right, rational planning. Then you had transactive planning, which was your final stage. That was. So one such type of planning process is your participatory planning process. So URDPFI guidelines has also given framework for participatory process. So in this they have mentioned कि कौन से steps है, and कौन से steps में we require citizen or their representative, in which steps we require urban development professionals and officials. For example, if you see this particular stage, determining goals and objectives, definitely you need citizens because they are the ones who will be living in that particular city. Urban development professionals, that is more or less a question mark, might be, may not be, or maybe, because this is at a very core level, right? So you might need your citizens and your official or your politician itself. So these two will first be deciding what are the goals. Sometimes your urban planner can be included also. Now, once it goes to data collection stage, note how citizens representative has no value, because in data collection is purely urban planner or the surveyor's job as well as your politician or your local body government's job, right? So again, इसमें कुछ है नहीं. So similarly, you can just go through all these areas and understand which community or which particular professional have how many roles. This is again with respect to your 74th CAA. Okay. Any doubts still here?
No, no, no doubt.
Okay. This was with respect to your planning process. It was a very short section. After this, the most important section would be third section, which is resource mobilization for plan implementation. So again, हम लोग ने प्लान फॉर्मुलेट करना स्टार्ट कर दिया, प्लान बना रहे हैं, बट वी नीड टू थिंक पैसा कहाँ से आने वाला है, बिकॉज विदाउट मनी यू कांट एग्जीक्यूट वॉट एवर यू आर प्रपोजिंग. So that's why resource mobilization and money, not just money, but your natural resources, human resources, then machineries. So all these resources they need to be procured. They are required for a plan implementation. So in this particular thing, land becomes a very important term. This is also termed as land resource. पैसा कहाँ से आने वाला है? लैंड बेच के आने वाला है. पैसा कहाँ से आने वाला है? लैंड लीज करके मिलने वाला है, रेंट मिलने वाला है मुझे लैंड पे. दिस इज हाउ लैंड पे व्हेन यू बाय अ प्रॉपर्टी यू नीड टू पे स्टैम्प ड्यूटी. There are taxes. So all these taxes, stamp duty, surcharge fees, all this on land, right? It is ultimately on your land. So that's why land becomes a very important resource for your fiscal resource mobilization or getting money for projects of development. So let's just read through this first. Land value depends on demand and supply of land. This we had also studied last class, right? With respect to which theory? Bid rent theory. We had done bid rent theory. We had also done location theory. In all these theory, you saw how land, which has more, for example, near the CBD, had a very steep bid rent to your land use slope. While there were more, like for example, you have single houses, they had a very gentle slope. So that's why your land becomes very important. Value increases as the demand exceeds supply, which is the general case owing to limited supply of land. So that's why a lot of time what happens, your government needs to do some development, but that particular land has been encroached by say some illegal occupation. It can be owned by someone who has so your land passes through generation. So it can be a very heritage or old land. At that particular time, you need to do something which is known as land acquisition. ठीक है, तो लैंड acquire करना पड़ता है. Under your land acquisition, the thing is, when your government decides that the land is required for its public development, you need to give it to the government. Okay. Again, you can have objections also, but more or less you need to surrender your land. With respect to this land acquisition, there was an act which was formulated in 1894. This was the first act. But abhi kya hoga, once you take land from someone, land is a very important resource, right? It can give you money, it can give you a place to stay, it can give you, for example, in rural context, you do agriculture, animal husbandry on lands itself. That's why whenever you take a land, there needs to be some compensation. This particular Land Acquisition Act was again re-amended into a new act, which is given as RFCTLARR Act of 2013. So we'll just read the full form. This is nothing but the right to fair compensation and transparency. The owner of the land needs to know कि land का सही use हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है, right? So that is very important. Fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act. At times, if you have slums and you are acquiring that land, then you need to resettle those people also, right? You can't make people homeless. That's why rehabilitation and resettlement were added to this particular act. This is known as your RFCTLARR Act, and इस पे भी काफी questions पूछे जा चुके हैं. So if you have time and if you want to get into depths of this act, you can also read this act. This is available on internet. It is like around 50 or 80 pages, so you can just go through it once. It defines land so as to include the benefits that arise out of land, things attached to the earth, or permanently fastened to anything attached to the earth. This is how your land is defined in this particular act. The act also requires that the market value of land to be calculated as the minimum land value specified under the Indian Stamp Act of 1899. Very, very important. Market value calculated as the minimum land value specified under your Indian Stamp Act. So all these things are very important. इस पे MSQ questions, match the following questions आ चुके हैं. So it is very important. For registration of sale deeds in the area where the land is located, or the average of the sale price for similar type of land located in immediate areas, right? So this is very important. So this is a brief history that I had already mentioned. It was given in 1894, but then for like transparency and compensation, it was after 120 years the act was replaced. Okay? Now, in this particular act, there are some other terms that are also very important. First is land assembly. How are you utilizing that land for development? How is the land getting acquired? Are you sharing the land between two or more lessers? Then is there some reservation on your land? For example, railway land hai, so there are reservations on the land. It is an agricultural land. It has certain reservations to it. So that, as well as transferable development rights. So we have studied this in DCPR also, right? So we'll cover all these things in land assembly. Broadly, all these areas will come under land assembly. So let's just have a look at it. Land assembly and development mechanism are undertaken for achieving optimum social use of urban land to ensure adequate availability of land to public authority and individuals. Very important. You should have equitable use of land to the government also, so that they can make development at the same time to the people who are staying there also, or the community. That's why public private participation is achieved in land development through various techniques, mainly the land assembly techniques. These are land acquisition, bulk acquisition by state or by private initiatives, land pooling, pooling matlab sharing. Uber pool hota tha, right? You used to remember there was something known as Uber pool. So you can consider that to land pooling. Land pooling approach and redistribution scheme, popularly known as town planning schemes, very important. Land reservations, concept of accommodation reservation, which allows the landowner to develop sites reserved for an amenity. Transferable development rights, a technique of land development which separates development potential of a land parcel for use elsewhere. For example, my land has a higher FSI, but there is some airport restrictions that are there. So I can't utilize my FSI to the full potential. That means it is a loss for me. But because of TDR, transferable development right, I can take that FSI into some other part of the city, right, where I own the land, and then I can apply it there. So this is known as all these four. ये फोर कहाँ आ सकते हैं? मैच द फॉलोइंग, अ वेरी फेवरेट क्वेश्चन इन मैच द फॉलोइंग. ठीक है? एनी डाउट्स स्टिल नाउ?
No, no, no doubt.
ओके. ओके, ठीक है. So your first topic would be land acquisition. So land acquisition, I'm not going into much detail. This is something we already do in our bachelor's also. But one more important thing was compensation, and one more term, solation. So solatium is sometimes above your compensation up to 30% of your market value. More compensation is provided to the owner in case the land was too valuable. So this is not derived in sentimental value. Obviously, it can't be sentimental कि ये मेरे लिए बहुत ये था इसलिए इसका value ज़्यादा होना चाहिए. But through historic evidence, through proper research, then sometimes solatium is given to the particular landowner. So this was one term that I wanted to give you also. Now, land acquisition method will differ from state to state, city to city. So, for example, you have bulk land acquisition method with private initiative, bulk land acquisition method with state initiative. So you can just read through these. Then every other your development authority will have their own process of land development. तो उनका कितने साल में वो लैंड मिलना चाहिए, कितने साल में वो डेवलप होना चाहिए, कितना कंपनसेशन देना है, सिटी से सिटी वो डिफर करेगा. ओके, सो दैट इज वन वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. Then you have, for example, SIDCO model is also there. So I'll just read through this because you will be able to understand this. SIDCO model of land development in Navi Mumbai follows the technique of land banking for land assembly. What is land banking? Let's see. The compensation to the landowners is done by the way of monetary and land compensation. But in Vasai Virar sub-region, SIDCO undertook the land assembly by obtaining power of attorney from landowners or outright purchase of freehold lands located close to each other by private developers or builders. The promoter is solely responsible for providing and maintaining infrastructure for consolidated land parcel. So even in Navi Mumbai and in Vasai Virar, even if SIDCO is the main development authority, the way in which land acquisition is done is very different. In Navi Mumbai, they follow something known as land banking, जहाँ outright पैसा दिया जाएगा, there will be land compensation also. In Vasai Virar, they have taken help of private developers. They take the land, give it to a private developer, and then they will be holding the private developer liable to all the developments that is happening in that particular land parcel. So that's why every city, every with respect to its own regional context, will have different methods. The second thing that we'll be discussing is land pooling. So let's have a look at this. In town planning or plot reconstitution scheme, the land is pooled and its development is financed with involvement of landowners without compulsorily acquiring the land. Then you have transferable development right. Again, I'm not going to focus a lot on this because this is a pretty clear concept, right? I had given already the example. You transfer your FSI to another region such that your development happens. So your land का जो value होता है वो compromise नहीं होता because of some unforeseen conditions. Increasing supply of land for the poor is again one more thing which we do. This is to mitigate the differences that are created. And if you see, why do we do land pooling or why do we do land acquisition? Because there is land which was encroached. But the question that you should ask at the first place is कि ये land encroach ही क्यों हुआ, right? Encroach क्यों हुआ? Encroachment के बाद हमको क्यों ये सब करना पड़ रहा है? So your first question should be, why was this land encroached? And it is because there is a lot of influx of people, migrants, to your city, and they are unable to keep up with the money that city requires. That's why you have all these slums, squatters, and construction worker housing. So you have juggies that are there. So all these develop. So that's why your resource mobilization also needs to account for increasing supply of land for poor. That means sites and services. Sites and services provides target group with plot and basic infrastructure such as water, roads, and sanitation. Anyone remembers a architect associated with this particular scheme, sites and services? We had covered this in history way back.
Kukreja, I don't know.
No, not C.P. Kukreda. It was Christopher Charles Benninger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had
Yeah, yeah.
developed those site and services schemes. So remember that it can always come. Then you have illegal settlements, right? Land sharing, site without services, so incremental development. एकदम ही सब नहीं दे सकते तो gradually increase करेंगे. And then reservation for service population. So this is for your railway workers, domestic help, cleaners, drivers, all these essential things, right? Okay. Any doubts till now?
No, no, no doubt.
Saloni?
No,
Okay, okay,
no,
clear है
no,
ना?
no doubt.
Okay. Now the next most important part is fiscal resource mobilization. ये सब पैसे का खेल है, right? Money is the most important thing. So how do you get money into your government body? So if you see project life cycle, selection of infrastructure project by ULB, for example, a road project, estimating total project cost. This will be done by your engineers itself. Choosing financial options. So it can be funding और इट कैन बी रेवेन्यू. फंडिंग मतलब कोई तो हम लोग को फॉर एग्जांपल कोई गवर्नमेंट के बॉन्ड्स होते हैं सो उससे मिल रहा है या कोई डोनेशन दे रहा है. देर इज पब्लिक प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप और जॉइंट वेंचर्स, राइट, वेर यू do collaboration with a government, government does collaboration with a public developer. Public developer will get to develop the property, they will earn benefit at the same time government doesn't have to think about the cost क्योंकि private जो डेवलपर होता है उसका ऑलरेडी सब हो जाता है, राइट, दे हैव द रोलिंग मनी. So this is one way of doing it. Revenue is through taxes, charges, and all the different things, right? Then selecting the mode of project implementation. So it can be PPP mode, that is your public-private partnership, outsourcing to contractor on outsourcing it to various other contractors, that can be there. So government doesn't have to take the headache of doing the work. Then self-financed and beneficiaries committee. So all these are various ways in which you start implementing your projects. So, what are the different costs that are associated with a project or with land development? Let's have a look at it. The first will be capital investment or capex. This will be your land cost. Basic land will have a value, so that cost. उस पे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर जो बेसिक डेवलप करना है, रोड्स, वाटर सप्लाई, सैनिटेशन, उसका कॉस्ट. प्रोजेक्ट स्पेसिफिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर लाइक टोल प्लाजास, ब्रिजेस, फ्लाईओवर्स, building and civil cost, civil works cost, interest during construction. Very important because construction projects will have a lot of time. It will take time, and we need to consider the time value of money. That means आज का 1 लाख रुपए and one value of 1 lakh rupees after 5 years is not going to be the same. That's why you need to account for interest in this. All these things will come into capital investment. The second is your working capital, okay, or your incidental expenses. There are certain expenses that will be for sure and something you're unsure of. So you need to take into consideration both the expenses. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि you have taken rigid, you know, consideration कि ये ही expense है, उतना budget allocate किया. But for example, there is a flood that has come into your project timeline. उसके वजह से कॉस्ट बढ़ गया, पर वो मैंने पहले अकाउंट ही नहीं किया था, तो प्रोजेक्ट बंद हो गया, प्रोजेक्ट स्टॉल हो गया. दैट वी डोंट वांट. सो योर वर्किंग कैपिटल मार्जिन. Second is operation and maintenance cost. Obviously, salary and wages of your workers, of your managers, recurring raw material cost, repair and maintenance, administration overheads, marketing expenses, and project specific. So this is very very important. इस पे एक MSQ question आया था, I think in GATE 23 or 22, in which they had mentioned which of these following costs come under operation and maintenance or something like that was there. So it was a MSQ type of question. तो उसमें they had given some out of capex and some out of the third choice. So you had to make select the correct options. ठीक है. So again this is very important. What are the funding sources and what are the revenue sources? Let's have a look at that. What are the traditional funding sources? Grants and subsidies, municipal bonds and debentures, funding by bilateral and multilateral agencies. Very clear, right? Innovative sources: foreign direct investment, public private partnership, pooled finance, public fund, PF, your pooled finance public fund, loans from financial institution. So this is how you get your money. Revenue is something your government will collect. So taxes, fees and surcharges, income from interest, other income sources, land auction, betterment levy and betterment charges. Any doubts in these two? Anything?
No, no, no doubt.
Again, they can ask you a MSQ question here. Which of the following fiscal resource mobilization sources come under funding sources? So they'll give you four options, out of which they will include some from revenue and some from funding. So all these will happen in MSQ questions. MCQ questions is very rare in such cases. Okay. So, what are the traditional and innovative approaches for fiscal resource mobilization? They have just elaborated all the things that we have spoken about. So, you have taxes. State government authorizes local governments by law to collect taxes. Taxes are major source of revenue of urban local bodies. Property tax, profession tax, advertisement tax are the major sources. Then charges and fees, so water charge, then your solid waste management charge, parking charges, service charge, all these will come under charges and fees. Grants and subsidies, certain subsidies are given to the central government to local urban local bodies. For example, even in building terms, you might have heard that for solar installation you get certain subsidies from the government itself. Similarly, for developing infrastructure, your central government will give certain subsidies to your local government also. So this is how you can do it. Public private partnership, again I've covered. Loans from financial institutions, these are nothing but loans, so you can take it from RBI or other national level or international banks also. Foreign direct investment, if any country, for example China does a lot of FDI in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, so that is something can also happen, but they have a hidden motto to acquire the control over that land. But FDI is also one way of doing it. Pooled Finance Development Fund, PFDF. This is a very important scheme. PFDF is meant to provide credit enhancement grants to enable ULB to access market borrowings to facilitate development of municipal infrastructure. So this also has a credit system. So better your credits, you can take larger loans, larger shares of your pooled finance. Pooled finance मतलब it is like a larger market share. जो अपना mutual funds भी होता है. Larger your money is pooled, and then according to your credits, you get more money or less money. So that is one thing. And municipal bonds and debentures. So every government will have their own bonds, state bonds, central bonds, and that. Okay, so this is the entire thing. Then in depth, they have given all the various, what are the taxes and what is definition of taxes. What is, for example, we'll start with this particular thing because this is more like theoretical. So this particular point, property tax on lands and buildings. So either through your landlord or through your tenants, you need to pay property tax. You must have seen your parents also giving property tax. So this is one very important thing. Stamp duty. As I mentioned, when you buy a buy a property, you need to pay stamp duty. That stamp fees hota hai. This is based on your circle rate or your ready reckoner rate. तो रेडी रखना रेट होता है एक रीजन का, वो हिसाब से आपको स्टैम्प ड्यूटी देना पड़ता है वो पर्टिकुलर फ्लैट लेने को. टैक्स ऑन लैंड प्रॉपर्टी वैल्यू इंक्रीमेंट. समझो आप चेंबूर में रहते थे. चेंबूर फर्स्ट वाज अ वेरी लाइक not so valued area, but then you had a lot of transportation routes, a lot of freeways coming into that particular area. Uska value overnight बढ़ गया, right? Overnight investment हो गया. So government can't let go of that extra benefit that is happening. So a certain tax is taken on that. Water tax, your basic access to municipal waterways. Fire tax, because fire tax is taken because when you catch fire, the government is liable to the government is liable to take care of the fire, right? You call the fire station. Fire stations are operated by government, so it is something like an insurance, you can say, but that particular tax is to be given to government itself. Tax on congregations. So, for example, it is a tax levied per head or per vehicle for providing municipal services to person vehicles visiting the municipal area for purpose of tourism or with respect to any congregation or any large pilgrimage is there, a fair is there. So, for example, Mahakumbh होता है या कुंभ मेला होता है, तो a lot of people will come on that particular land or area, right? So, on that particular thing, you need to pay tax. Then tax on pilgrims and tourists. So a lot of these areas, like for example, even in Vaishno Devi, you have taxes on that. Your tickets and your all your reservations will have certain amount of tax that will go again to the government. Then tax on deficit in parking spaces in any non-residential building. Deficits in the provision of parking spaces required for different types of vehicles in any non-residential building. So again, on parking also you have tax. Then advertisement tax, vehicle tax, profession taxes are income tax. That is also very important. Domestic servants tax. So if you have like a lot of domestic servants also, so you need to give the tax on that. Vacant land tax. Lands that are vacant which have high FAR potential also, so वो development करना चाहिए, right? Because it has high FAR potential. But if your owner is not doing any development, it is just rotting there in the city, then something known as vacant land tax is given to that particular land. Octroi Naka, you would have heard in APMC and Vashi. This is for your entry of goods. So in APMC, you have a lot of these vegetables, fruits, and food grains coming from Nashik, coming from Pune, coming from various parts of the country. So this transfer of goods into a city's municipal boundaries will require some type of tax, and this is known as octroi. And there are other taxes also, apart from all the taxes that I've mentioned. What are surcharges? Surcharges, some state provide for levy on surcharge on state taxes to be passed on local bodies. For example, surcharge on stamp duty. Municipality can levy a surcharge on the transfer of lands and buildings situated within municipal area as a percentage of stamp duty levied on such transfer. So certain, with respect to certain products, you can either have an increased rate of tax that you pay, that is your surcharge, or you can have a subsidy, which is your decreased rate of tax. So that can be done on entertainment, on stamp duty, on electricity consumption. अभी electricity consumption क्यों? क्योंकि for example you have an entire city. For example, we have our Mumbai city like this, right? For example, a residential area and a commercial area, two are present. If I go by the formula कि सबको same electricity का tax देना है, so it would be very unfair, right? Because a residential area will consume lesser electricity than a commercial area or a area that has a lot of malls, a lot of infrastructure. So at that time, you need to apply surcharges, right? So this concept is very important to keep things fair. Apart from this, you have tolls. Tolls is majorly associated with transportation. आपका रोड और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मेंटेनेंस के लिए. So you have roads and bridges, ferries, heavy trucks. So heavy trucks पे क्यों ज्यादा टोल देते हैं? क्योंकि वो they do more wear and tear of your roads, bridges, cause more congestion, right? That's why larger tolls on larger vehicles. Charges and fees, development charges, levies, impact fees, non-tax sources, valorization charges, and service charges. So these are, as I mention, various other charges on solid waste management, parking, water supply, drainage can be even given to as per the municipal requirements. Okay. Again, for example, as I mentioned, transit corridors will attract more economic activities. Therefore, the amount of tax, the amount of surcharge will be more on that cases because it will generate more revenue. Any doubts in fiscal resource mobilization?
No, no, no doubt.
Concept between tax, surcharge, and toll is clear, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is clear, but I'll go through it
Yeah,
two
yeah.
or three times more.
Okay, ठीक ठीक है. So now we do something again. This is a very important topic, which is public-private partnership. This is in your GATE syllabus. This will come under B 2.2, which is your planning techniques and management. But we'll go through the entire thing once. Okay. Why do we do public-private partnerships? Because at times your government has the land, but the funds are not enough. That's why they hire a private developer or an entrepreneur there, right? So you are able to develop that particular land in which your public also benefits. That means your government will also benefit, your private developer will also benefit. So this is your main things. So in that you have management contracts. Again, contracts become your crux of PPPs, right? Because everything is mentioned कि कौन से step पे कौन liable है. Government की liabilities कितनी है, private player की liabilities कितनी है. Turnkey projects. Turnkey projects, for example, at a very smaller level in interiors, we do turnkey projects or we do a project which has designer and a contractor. A normal project will have a designer, they will design the project, and then it shifts to contractor. Contractor will execute the project. That means the client will pay design fees to the designer or the architect that is there, and client will pay the contractor का fees, right? Contractor जो quote देगा वो हिसाब से contractor को भी देगा. But in this particular case, your client has to manage fees to your designer, to your contractor, any other consultant involved, right? So client has to pay to various people in the process of executing the project. In a turnkey project, the one authority, for example, the designer in this case, will manage all the money for your client. So for example, the designer will quote कि एक इंटीरियर का प्रोजेक्ट है आपका 30 lakhs का कोट है, ठीक है. ये 30 lakhs पूरे के पूरे डिजाइनर को चले जाएंगे. Now designer under his supervision will have a contractor or the consultants and he will manage the finances. That means it can go two ways, right? Either the designer is making a lot of profit from this because, for example, he has taken 30 lakhs from the client, and then he is maybe some ill practices happen, right? They are investing into cheaper materials or something, उसके वजह से प्रॉफिट ज्यादा हो गया, या तो इट कैन ऑल्सो इनकर लॉसेज ऑल्सो इफ यू आर अनेबल टू मैनेज योर मनी. So that's why turnkey projects are projects in which, for example, your government completely hands over the financial responsibilities to your private developer. That might be a turnkey project. Lease is very important. इन मोस्ट ऑफ दिस केसेस फॉर एग्जांपल अगर गवर्नमेंट ने एक प्राइवेट डेवलपर को लैंड दिया भी है डेवलप करने को, दैट डजंट मीन प्राइवेट डेवलपर विल ओन दैट लैंड फॉर इटर्निटी, राइट? देयर विल बी अ पीरियड ऑफ 99 years, a period of 199 years that will be given to the developer कि इतने time तक you have the control over your land and can manage the revenue of the land and pay a part of your revenue as a tax or as a charge to the government. So that's why lease becomes very important. According to your lease, your properties can be either leasehold, that means they are bound by time, or they can be freehold, that means they are for eternity, the owner has claim on the land, right? Concession, very important. There are certain incentives and subsidies also that will give you concessions. We'll see that also. And private ownership. So these are major aspects of public-private partnership. Then we also did this particular thing, right? PFDF. So let's have a look at what exactly PFDF is. इस पे अभी तक इतने क्वेश्चंस नहीं आए, but I personally strongly feel a lot of questions in future can be asked on this particular subject. Small and medium-sized cities find it difficult to raise resources from the market for infrastructure projects due to lack of project structuring capabilities and credit worthiness. Credit पे सब dependent है. The Government of India has launched a Pool Finance Development Scheme (PFDS) to enable these local bodies to bridge this gap through accessing market funds for their infrastructure projects. So you can think of a large pool just by various investments have happened and a lot of cash flow or a lot of monetary flow has happened. Now, how does one urban local body access it? Let's see. The scheme is meant to provide credit enhancement grants to enable local authorities to access market borrowings through this particular municipal bonds for investment in urban infrastructure projects. PFDS facilitates ULBs in municipal infrastructure by helping them access to capital and financial market for investment. It facilitates local body in developing bankable urban infrastructure projects. With appropriate credit enhancement measures, it helps ULBs in reducing cost of borrowing from the market. Even if you buy loan right now for an individual thing, you have something known as CIBIL. CIBIL score. So you need to maintain a threshold, right? Only then you get certain amount of loans. The issue with smaller and medium towns is to get to that threshold, and through this scheme, government, the central government or the state government will give a lot of credit enhancement so that they can take the money for their infrastructure and development. Okay? Again, there are various possible sources of funding for projects. So, for example, large infrastructure project can be done through bilateral, multilateral FDIs and PPPs. City level infrastructure project through central grants and schemes. So this won't be that important, but you can just remember कि सब applications कहाँ apply हो रहा है. Okay. Now, with respect to your public-private participation, as I had mentioned, these are the major heads that you have to study. So, PPP models vary from short-term simple management contracts to long-term very complex BOT form. BOT is nothing but build. So, build, O मतलब operate, and T मतलब transfer. ठीक है? This is your basic. Developer build करेगा, operate करेगा, and then transfer करेगा. This is how your cycle is. Depending upon type of project and requirements of public entity, any single or combinations could be selected. So there are various combinations. You have BOT, you have BOOT. So we'll see this also. This is in the next few slides only. In such models, amount of investment, risks, obligations, and durations vary. एक पीपीपी मॉडल एक हर प्रोजेक्ट में डिफरेंट होगा विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू वेरियस स्टेक होल्डर्स, राइट? सो दैट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू बी कंसिडर. These models vary mainly by ownership of capital assets, responsibility of investment, assumption of risk, and duration of contract. Okay. So again, I'm not going into all these details because we have already discussed what is a management contract, turnkey project, lease, concessions, and private ownership. So if you have any doubts, then we'll discuss those things. Any doubt in that?
No, no, no doubt.
Okay. So this B PPP models I'll continue tomorrow because This is very important and it needs some relaxed mind. Okay. So any doubts till now?
No doubt. But I'll go through.
Yeah. Okay. I think we'll stop for today. As I mentioned, Saturdays will be a little lighter. Joby we have to cover, we'll do mostly on Sunday. So it will be 1.5 to 2 hours class on Saturday and might go to 2.5 hours class on Sunday. Okay. So this is how we'll be doing the
Yeah.
thing. And
Okay.
URDPFI guidelines will be, we'll do tomorrow also and next Saturday also because it is a large document and very important document. Uh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. Works.
For this week's test, it will be on urban planning theories and economic theories that we have covered in last class, last weekend.
Okay.
Okay? It will be a subject test of 15 marks.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so see you tomorrow. If there are any doubts, you can always let me know.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Chalo.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome. Bye.